So it's been highly recommended that I do some good commander guides. So in today's video, we are going to do Gandalf the Grey. I'm going to first and foremost give you how I believe you should lay out his skills, and then we will get into the gear and a couple different troop comps. There's just so many different things you can do with him. There's multiple ways you can play him. So stick around. Let's get it. Welcome back to CO Gaming, and man, has it been a while since I have done a video. It's been a nice little break. Been doing a lot of live streaming, but in today's video, we're going to get into this guide. Before we get started, just like to take a minute to remind everybody, please like and subscribe to my channel. It does greatly support me and help out more than you could ever imagine. So, that being said, let's just jump right into this. So we will start off with going into the skills and how you should play him. So starting off, if you're just starting a season, great tile taker. Excellent tile taker. Probably one of the best in the game for sure. So we're just going to do this. We're going to do it based on a R5. So once you hit 50, it would be based off of 59 skill points, because that's technically what you would have. So starting off PvE wise, what I always do myself is I'll kind of go through the baseline with it. So I'll always go in and do your heal. It's great. It works properly. Everything's good with it. And of course, you know, the higher you get it leveled up, the better it is. But you're going to go into your gray line, put your points there. So we'll go ahead and just drop these in here real quick. I had him all specced out before, but wanted to kind of do it with the video. And then the only other thing that I do here is I will put 1 point into blindside just for the stun. Yes, you get a little bit of focus damage out of it, but I do like the stun for the 1 round. So we'll put a point there. Many will tell you that you should put your points in fleeting movements. I personally don't do this. It is not a bad thing. You can't go wrong with doing it, but I don't put that point in there. You can kind of test and see what you think about it, but just giving you the way I build it. Once I do that, I will immediately jump over into Wizard. I always put 2 points here, and that is for the stun as well. And then I'll jump down and put 1 point into Surge just for that little extra damage. And then once you have those points in, you'll jump in and do Myth Reindeer. So, of course, this is more of, I guess, where you can say where your damage reduction comes from. So you're going to put, of course, your 15 points in Myth Reindeer. And if you know, this is as you're leveling. Depending on what respect you have him, you get more skill points to start with. Lower respects get less, of course, just the way it goes. But we're going to put our 15 in there. Then once you're done with that, there's 2 different ways you can do this. For sure, you want convener, initiative, follow up. Enough said. At this point, everybody knows what initiative and follow-up is. If you don't, I'll kind of give you a reminder. Initiative can act first this round. Basically, it allows you to attack first. Follow-up initiates 2 normal attacks this round. Basically, you hit once. If follow-up activates, you get a second attack. So you definitely want to put your 7 points in there. So now, depending on what troop comp you have. So some people go evil. Some people will run alchemist. Even early game, you can unlock your T1s and T2s of the breaker layer. So if you're doing that, this is not what you want to do. Early game with the new campaign, the King of Men campaign, it's a little bit easier because you start off with men and evil, evil men and men. So you can kind of level up both, and you can run primarily men on Gandy. If you're one of those people that want to run evil troops, do not put points in this. There's no point. It's not going to have any effect for you. But if you run men troops, then yes, put your 7 points into free peoples. If you don't do it, then at this point, you can start to go into Wizard or White Council. You can balance this out, like I said, depends on your respect. As you've seen, I had 56 base points or 57 base points when we started this. You're going to get 59 points at 50. So at that time, if I had 57, then we're going to get 2 extra points, which means we're going to have 18. We're going to have 18 total points to do this with. So what we're going to do is we're just kind of balance our white council line for those remaining points. So what I'm going to do and what I would recommend is you just kind of start by going to 10 with white council, and then this is going to kind of be our primary. This is what we're going to want to go into the most. As you can tell, it does crazy extra damage to it. But we would have 3 skill points left at this point. What you can do is you can go 3 into this, which is perfectly fine, or you could go 2 more into white council, and then your last point in here. What I would recommend is you go ahead and go with high alert, especially in a PvP situation, because, of course, everybody uses Gandhi as a Witch King breaker. That is the sole purpose for Gandhi at this point in PvP. It is a part of the meta, just the way it goes. So that's what I would recommend as far as that. With that being said, there's a couple different ways you can do this. There's a couple different tweaks. A lot of people kind of come out of this hill once they get into the PvP part of the game. You know, after that initial grind, you're just hammering it out. You're already 50. So there is a different way you can do this. Kind of the same, but a little bit different. And once again, it depends on the troops you're running. If you're running men or good side compared to evil troops, kind of go with that. But what I recommend as far as PvP goes is I would get a little bit more focused on white council compared to the gray. That's just my personal choice and how I spec my Gandhi when I'm playing. So what I do is I'll try to go as much into this tree as I can without sacrificing all my heal. Of course, the lower specs are going to have more troubles with doing this, so it's something you have to take into account. Respect 10 plus, you get, many more skill points. So, you can go into more, right? So yeah, just kind of got to balance it out. Find that middle ground for you. But I personally would focus more on the white council than the gray. Yes, the heal is nice, but with the gear, you're already running a healing piece as it is. So it's not going to be as bad if you sacrifice, that heal compared to the damage reduction you're going to do to focus burn and poison damage. The main one being burn damage if you're fighting a Witch King, or if you're fighting, a Sauron where people are trying to beat you with a Sauron, reducing that focus damage is going to be huge. Throw, a focus reduction chest piece on, and you're good to go. You're actually going to be competitive for fighting Saurons because, that's the big thing, the madness and the focus damage. So, that being said, that's kind of the way I personally do it. I start to focus more on White Council and Mithrandir. And then again, of course, if you run good side troops, make sure you get your 7 points here. If you don't run good side troops, then don't put points there. It's going to do you no good. But that's generally how you would do it. It's like I said, there's several different ways you can do it. Just kind of play around with it. Find your middle ground, find what you're comfortable with, and that's kind of just the way you go with it. With that being said, we'll jump out of this. We will get into what gear I would run. So there's really 2 separate types of way you can gear your Gandhi out. So the big things right now is there's a melee build and there's a range build. So for the melee build, you run your normal cutlass with melee might. You can run your scale mail, which does your army defense with melee vigor. Then, of course, with Gandhi in the melee build, you're going to run your bone mask with hysteria. It's just what allows you to do your madness. And then you run your worn out smoky pipe with sustain. It's going to be a heal. If you're doing a range build, the things you change up here is you're going to go down and you're going to put your points and build a Mirkwood bow with ranged might. The chest piece, there's a couple different recommendations here. Probably the main one that I would say would be like maybe probably going with something like Hunter Skin. You can do this. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to, of course, if you have range vigor, it's going to give you damage reduction for your range units. You're not running a pure ranged unit builds. You're going to put cataphracts out in front of them and run 2 range units depending on what you do. You can do sentinels, sharpshooters, or you could do, sharpshooters. Pretty much any range unit, bow knights. It's whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter. I personally run sharpshooter sentinels. I guess it's more cost effective to do it that way. But hunter skin works perfectly. You can also, if you really wanted to, run a scale mail. Completely up to you. I would personally run a hunter skin if I was doing the range loadout. For the helmet, at this point you would run a trapper's hood. Gives you army attack ranged. Gonna buff those ranged, and it still gives you hysteria if you had that one, but that's the one that you want. You want hysteria. And then run your normal worn out smoking pipe. Or if you wanted to get real crazy with the damage, which I really don't recommend this, you could do a Wizard's Fireworks with range might. I would probably leave the worn out smoking pipe on there with sustain. You're just going to get more benefit out of it. It's just kind of the way I do it. But that's pretty much it. That's your melee build, and that is your range build. It's not really a complex build. As far as the unique goes, uniques in this game are definitely interesting. I do believe there needs to be a lot more focus put into them. There needs to be a revamp. Personally, for me, we can talk about this in every video I do coming up, but I will not be recommending a unique for really anybody because none of them make sense as far as what it costs to actually use them. They're way too expensive. T1 commanders are a little easier because you get a lot more of the blue mithril. But T2, T3, especially T3, it's just not worth it, nor is most of them actually good. I really don't think, but like maybe 2 or 3 of them are actually worth consideration of using. But this one in particular, you get focus, you get army HP, and the substat is leader of the free folk, damage received minus 2.5% when army is comprised of units of 3 different races. Well, to me, that already messes you up because why are you going to run 3 different races? Like, I really don't see a point. You would have to do something like dwarves, elves, men, or orcs, elf men, just something. And like at this point, I feel like you're just hindering yourself. There's no point in trying to do that. And the cost of leveling this up to get that substat to where it is truly worth it is not going to be cheap, period. Even though he is a T2, the purples still aren't the most cost effective thing in the game. So that's just my personal opinion. It's not a bad item, but I do feel like it needs a lot of work. So I would not recommend you putting the time nor the money and effort into upgrading this. Like, don't even put golds into it because you cannot get them back. So I would just avoid messing with that at all, which is why, as you can tell, this is my alt account, one of my alt accounts, not my main account. But I have not even tried, and even on my main account, I do not have this, so there's really no point in messing with it at all. That's just my recommendation, which is why I'm 67 out of 60. As far as that goes, your troop layout will be pretty simple for your average build for this. So if you're going with ranged, I don't have all the troops unlocked, or I would be showing you myself. But for your range build, like I said before, you're going to want to go 2 range units and cataphracts. That's going to be probably your best build. You could substitute cataphracts for, like a T4, say like Swan Knights with the King of Men campaign, you get the option to go on War Chariots and Swan Knights. You can do this. It's not going to hurt you. Swan Knights are a very good unit. They're very, protective type of unit. Just kind of whatever you want to do, but my recommendation would be Cataphracts and up front. Just they're the most simple to do. Then after you run your Cataphracts, you're going to put 2 range units beside them. I personally use Sharpshooters, Sentinels. You can do Sharpshooters, Bow Knights. I would always probably leave Sharpshooters on there. The damage they do in those early rounds are pretty up, and it's just really good to have. Sentinels, Bow Knights. If you wanted to run an evil ranged unit, maybe try out like the Orc Spear Throwers if you wanted to do that. I personally don't feel a need to do that. But so, Sharpshooters, Sentinels, Cataphracts. That's my recommended. As far as melee goes, it's a little bit more broad because there's so many melee units in this game. I think the one melee unit you definitely need to run is Reapers. Outside of that, I really don't think there's anything that's just a must-have. Go Reapers, Alchemist. Like you could just do 2. Or you could do Reapers, Alchemist, and War Drummers if you're in the King of Men. Or if you're not in the King of Men, you could do Reapers, Alchemist, and, Berserkers. Like, at this point, it really doesn't matter. A lot of people that I've seen here recently just do Reapers, Alchemist. Of course, if you're not on a non-RP server, then this isn't going to matter for you. You're going to want to go with that good side build, and then at that point, I would just solely recommend you go range build. There's no point in going melee build on the good side. I mean, yeah, you can pull it off, but it's not going to be the same. So, RP, stay range build, my recommendation. But if you are non-RP and you want to go melee build, that's perfectly fine. Reaper's Alchemist. If you want to just leave it at those 2, that's fine. Put Berserkers on there, that'll work. Any other, melee T3 type of unit would be just fine. I'm going to kind of try out a few different things this season. I will be dropping some videos at a much future date once I have kind of this information, but shouldn't be nothing too bad. But with that being said, that's kind of just what I do personally. That's what I would recommend others do. There's just so many things you can do with a commander like Gandhi. He is a huge part of the meta nowadays, so everybody should really work on him, put some focus. Plus, man, he is just insane at taking tiles early. Like, he makes the early game so much better, so it's definitely worth it. It's really pretty much about it. Like, I mean, you can't say enough about him. But as always, like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out tremendously. Until next time, see you out.